Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining CalVet for PTSD coping strategies with service dogs. Before we begin, as a disclaimer, we would like to bring to your attention that this webinar is being recorded, and by logging in, you are agreeing to be a part of the recording. The recording will be on our website and on the YouTube, on YouTube, so that you can watch and you can share with others that may benefit from the information presented. My name is Jennifer Rudquist, and I'm proud to say I'm a CalTAP training coordinator with the California Department of Veterans Affairs. I am also a veteran myself. I am a military brat. I'm a military spouse, and the mother of 3 active duty airmen. So I can safely say that I understand the hardships that you all had to endure to ensure our country's freedom. And we at CalVet understand, uniformed or not, you all served. We want you to know that cradle to grave, CalVet is here for all of you. And we truly are passionate, and all the organizations and the people that are presenting today are passionate about getting services and resources to you. And we highly encourage you guys, please reach out at any time if you are in need, or if you know anybody in need or have any questions. All right, let's move on. There we go. I'm excited you guys joined today's presentation because it's packed with great information that I know and resources that I know is going to make a huge impact in your life. We have a few different presenters here. We have Julie Thornberry here. She's from US Vets Outside the Wire. We have Crystal here. She is a service dog trainer and a mental health clinician. And Kevin Graves is our local interagency network coordinator for the Bay Area. We're going to be going through each one of us are going to go through our presentation. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session. So while the presentation is going, we ask that you guys utilize the Q&A section to put all your questions in there. And at the end of the presentations, we'll go through all of those questions. Michael Monk is here also. He's a training coordinator, and he's going to be putting links associated with the slides that are being presented. So if you want any of the links that are being presented, you just can copy and paste that into a Word document, or you can take a picture with your phones. All right, let's get started. The CalTAP overview. All right, what is CalTAP? CalTAP is designed to inform and connect veterans of all areas to their earned federal and state benefits, as well as provide continuing support and assistance as their needs change over time through 5 different pathways. So we like to say this verbatim because we want you to know that we understand that your needs are going to change day by day, week by week, month by month, and year by year. Things that you need today, you may not need tomorrow. And the same goes vice versa. Now, we want to be there for you 24/7. And a great way for us to do that is we have provided you with an online learning portal that has 5 different pathways. That's core curriculum, education, employment, entrepreneurship, and service providers. Service providers is a cool pathway. This is for those that are working with veterans and their families, kind of like a pathway for service providers to know what your needs are and how to help you the best. So this is our veterans resource book, you guys. It is like gold. Michael's going to put the PDF in the chat for you to download. Please download that and share with as many people as possible. You don't know what you don't know. The great thing about this resource book is you can go through this and find out about all the different resources that are available to you, whether they're state or federal benefits. And there you have the questions you can start with to get the assistance that you need. So how can you use CalTAP online? This is the CalVet website, you guys. It's calvet.ca.gov. Very, very easy. You can just Google CalVet if you would like to, or California Department of Veterans Affairs. It's usually the top one there. This website is so user-friendly. Do not be afraid to play with this website. Do not be afraid of rabbit holes, because those lead to your benefits. Benefits is money in your pocket and your family's pocket. So it's really, really easy. Everything is a click away. Education, just click on that and all the education benefits are there for you, whether they're federal or state. You click on healthcare, you can find out about healthcare benefits. All sorts of great things are right there. But if you look down the page, if you don't download the resource book on today, you can download it at any time through our website here. You just go down the page and it says resource book on there. So you can download that. What we have circled in yellow here is the CalTAP portal. And once you open the portal, you have this 5 different pathways, which make it really, really easy. Once you click on a pathway, it's going to have different modules that kind of break it down even more. And each one of these modules has documents with links and information to all the benefits that you need. So what are your California benefits? Now, you can find all of this in your resource book, also in addition to the Calvet website. Here is the California specific benefits. There's a nice long list of different benefits. We don't have enough time to go through each and every one of these benefits, but if you have any questions or you are interested in any of these benefits, in a couple more slides, you're going to have my information. You can send me an email at any point in time. Michael's going to be putting in the chat all of the links to these resources also. Common veteran websites. The first one is va.gov. This is kind of a hub for all your federal benefits. Everything is very user-friendly. Again, it's just like the Calvet website. Do not be afraid of rabbit holes. Everything's going to lead you to where you want to go, and you're going to learn something from it. So please use this. You can look up your medical records. You can find out how many months you have left on your GI Bill. You can make doctor's appointments. You can check on your disability claim. All sorts of great stuff on va.gov. This is my health. This is the healthcare part of the website on my VA. Really easy to use once again. And here is my health eVet. This is really great. You can message your doctors. You can download your medical records. You can make appointments and refill those prescriptions. So I went through a lot of information very quickly because we want to get to the meat and potatoes of this presentation. But we want you to know that we are always here for you here at Calvet, and we want to continue our relationship with you. And a great way to do that is you can provide your non-DoD email to CalTAP at calvet.ca.gov. You can register for My Calvet on our Calvet website, which I'm going to show you how to do in a slide after this, and add us on social media. We have a Facebook page. We have a Instagram page. We also have a YouTube channel. That's where you're going to find this webinar and all sorts of different webinars that you might need. The last thing is attend webinars and then fill out today's survey. The surveys are so important to us. We use them every single day. We want to make these webinars as beneficial as possible to you. So if there's something that we haven't presented on, let us know. If there's something that we could be doing better, let us know. If we're doing a fantastic job, let us know. So you can use this QR code, or you can copy the Survey Monkey that's going to be in the chat. All right, here's that My Calvet login that you can create. And that way you can get newsletters and you can get updates on the federal VA, and you can get updates on the state. So this is that newsletter that is put out. It is the December Calvet Veteran Services newsletter. It's going to talk about what the theme of the month is, and then upcoming webinars and some other great news. And the recorded webinars are also on here. So this is my contact information. Please take it down. Send me an email if you need anything whatsoever. And I have those QR codes back up for you to take pictures of those also. And I also want to point out that I have the crisis line right there, 988. We want this to be as infamous as 911. We want you to easily think of 988 if you or anyone you love, or anybody that you know, or somebody you meet that's in crisis, you know where to call. So it'd be 988. All right, now I'm going to hand the floor over to Kevin Graves. He's our local interagency network coordinator for the Bay Area. Kevin.
Good morning, everybody. First slide, please. So here are the regions that we have throughout the state of California for the links. And there are, as it shows, there's 8 of us. And we cover specific territories because we are therefore more familiar with the resources that are available within our territory. So if you may be watching this from anywhere in the state, so pay attention to this slide, because if you have questions or if you need resources in your particular area, your best bet is to reach out to the link that is in your area. Any of us will answer, and we'll probably refer you to that person, but it's beneficial to know who the links are and what their locations are, so that they can best provide for you the information that you may be looking for. That's one of our primary purposes. is to be able to guide calvet through nonprofit, for-profit organizations that work with veterans. We have some knowledge of the entire state, but we have those that have specific knowledge of their various areas. Can I get the next slide? There we go. So what do? We provide outreach to service members, veterans, and their families. We make referrals and work directly with, as I said, with different service providers in our area. We're very connected to different collaboratives, and we have a lot of resources that may not be easy to find otherwise. We also assist with local emergencies. Knock on wood. We've had a few fires this year, but it hasn't been horrible yet. But whenever there's a fire, for instance, we'll be at the local assistance center providing veterans with benefits and resources that they may need to replace things that they may have lost in the fire, or just to help them with any resources that may be available for displacement or evacuations and that type of thing. And we do that throughout the state. And we also advocate on your behalf within the community, with the leaders, helping them to understand that there's a definite benefit to having veterans living in their community and the assets that you can be to the local community. So we reach out to local political as well as county and regional leaders to make sure that they understand the benefits of having you all living within their territory and that they provide for you what you've earned. Next slide, please. We do this in several different ways. One of the ways is that we connect with our sister agencies, and one of them is the EDD. So for employment, we typically refer people to the EDD to be able to provide whatever assistance they may. They have dedicated employees, DevOps and leavers that are dedicated strictly to veterans. So if you were to call an EDD office, you would tell them that initially identify yourself as a veteran, and they will get you to the right people who are paid strictly to work only for veterans. With regards to our state benefits, of course, we are Calvet, and everything that comes through Calvet, we can help you find out about and get. But we also work very closely with our county veteran service offices. It seems a little bit odd, but actually they do more. They do more of the hands-on, boots on the ground type of work for you than we do, because we can't be in every county. There are 58 counties in the state of California. 56 of them have county veteran service offices. We help fund those offices so they will do this work for us. And a lot of things they do is verify eligibility for a lot of the benefits that you are eligible for. The other thing that they do that's a definite benefit for you is they should be the people you're talking to about filing claims or upgrading a discharge rating and that type of thing, because that's what they do 24/7. They know the code inside and out, and they are extremely helpful. So if you just Google CVSO, you will get a list of different county veteran service offices, rather the VA. And we do this both through their med centers.
It looks like Kevin's having some technical difficulties. But I can continue. So let's go to the next slide here. So this is Kevin's information right here. So if you have any, there you are, Kevin. Nope. Oh, he's definitely having some connection. Oh, nope.
I don't know what happened. I got kicked out there, but there's my contact information. Again, contact me with any questions you have. I'll guide you in the right direction. You don't have to worry about the map that much, but it's there for your use. Thank you for listening to us, and let's move on to the meat of the program.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for being here today and for all that you do in the Bay Area and for what you do for the community. Thank you so much. All right, with that, we're going to move on to Julie Thornberry. She is US Vets Outside the Wire. Had to do a couple there. Are you there, Julie?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Yes, thank you. It's such a privilege and an honor to be here today to speak about this important topic in the veteran community and really in our culture at large. So we're going to be looking at understanding and healing PTSD. We need to have that foundation to really know what it is, and then to know that there's hope for the healing. So before we jump in, I'm going to give a quick introduction to myself and my organization and program, because it's a great resource for the veteran community. So I'm Julie Thornberry. I'm a licensed therapist and clinical supervisor at the US Vets Outside the Wire program here in Los Angeles. You may be familiar with US Vets, and if not, you need to be. We're the largest nonprofit serving veterans in the United States. So outside of the government and the VA, there's US Vets. So we have multiple programs, multiple states. We have a great presence here in California. And at the end in the contact page, there's our website. So there's a lot of resources for veterans. The Outside the Wire program specifically works primarily with student veterans. So we're trying to find those veterans who are coming out of the military. They're going back into civilian life. Many find themselves in school, and they go through struggles, or they have undiagnosed mental health issues, and we want to find them before they fall between the cracks. So with that, let's just jump into the presentation. Next slide. So quickly, presentation objectives. I've mentioned we're looking at understanding and healing. So I want to start with the classic gold standard DSM-5 clinical diagnosis. That's a lot to say, but it's important that we really know what PTSD is. So for some of you who've already been diagnosed, this might be review, but many people get diagnosed with PTSD or other things, and they don't know how the doctor or clinician came to that. So we want to get clear on that, and really how it's impacting the veteran community, how it might be impacting you or someone you love. And then moving on to the hope, we're going to look at some of the gold standard evidence-based practices, successfully treating PTSD, and then some coping skills that hopefully you can walk away with today and have something you can start utilizing in your life. So let's move on. So understanding the DSM criteria for PTSD. I lifted this directly from the DSM-5. This is sort of the gold standard of clinical diagnosis. And, you know, some people get a little off-put with labels and diagnosis, which is understandable because who wants to be labeled? But it's important that we have a common language to understand what it is, how that diagnosis is arrived at, so we know how to treat it and be in a common language to research it and treat it. So what it is, I mean, at foundational base, it's when a person is exposed to a trauma. And this is generally a death or a threatened death, some types of threatened serious injury, or in fact, getting a serious injury, or sexual violence, rape, either being threatened or actually experiencing it directly. What's important to note from this slide really is just the wide range of things that can happen. It could be one event, it could be something you hear about, or it could be multiple things combined together. But it really can be something that happens to you, or it might be something you witness. It might be something you hear about or happens to someone you care about. And of course, it can happen in a professional duty, first responders, which of course military. This is a professional duty where individuals are exposed to these type of traumas. So that's why it's such an important issue and topic to know in the veteran community. So next slide, please. So PTSD, you know, it's one of those terms right now that's getting thrown around in culture. People will say I took a test and I got PTSD from it. I got triggered from this and from that. So there's a lot of misinformation about what it is, and it's treated quite cavalierly, but it's actually a complicated diagnosis. There are a lot of different categories and potential symptoms. So it doesn't look the same with every person. It doesn't manifest the same. So understanding what it is, I think, is really important. So in the most latest DSM, there are 4 general categories of symptoms. So 4 different areas that all have symptoms to meet that PTSD criteria. So I've created a slide for each one, and I'll go through in a little bit more detail. So next slide, please. So the first category is re-experiencing symptoms. So this is a big one. With re-experiencing symptoms, you will need to experience at least one of these from this category but of course, you may have more. These are the classic symptoms that people associate with PTSD: the flashbacks, the nightmares, the triggers. But these are more than just distressing memories, which of course they are memories. For the individual experiencing these symptoms, they're re-experiencing the trauma or traumas. So in their brain, they're back in the event or getting ready to experience that event. So you can imagine, if you need to, if you haven't experienced this, what that would be like to have a word or a smell or an experience. It could be a song, it could be a name. Anything could trigger an individual to literally be back in that moment. So to go through something like this once, but to repeatedly have it triggered at any moment, you can see how this would cause much distress and impairment. When we go through a stressful event, the brain, and the part of the brain called the amygdala, releases chemicals to help us survive. So adrenaline, right? We need to be able to fight for our lives or take flight. So these chemicals, this reaction, this primal reaction, is really there to try to protect us and get us out of that situation and survive. So of course, we all have it, and we don't want to completely turn it off. And then sometimes it saves our lives and it helps us. The problem becomes when someone experiences a trauma, when they're exposed to the trauma and it develops to PTSD, that brain starts to be easily triggered to that stressful moment. It actually starts pumping those chemicals to prepare to go through it again, or having you go through it again. So suddenly you're getting these chemicals pumped, your body's ready to take flight or to fight, but you're in your car, you're at home with your family, you're at work, you're just watching a movie. So this deregulation, this hypersensitivity to this area that's in the brain that's meant to protect us, can create a host of issues. So re-experiencing symptoms is an important one, and it's something that would really be worked on in your therapy. So next slide, please. So avoidance symptoms. In this category, you would once again need one, but they're both very similar. You know, at base, they're avoiding anything that's going to remind you, take you back, think about, feel trauma. You know, avoidance actually is very logical, right? I mean, if something's bad or scary, wouldn't you want to avoid it? If something feels bad, wouldn't you want to avoid it? If something triggers you and you're back there again, it makes sense. But the problem is this technique, this coping strategy, however logical, when it's done repeatedly on a trauma, when it advances to PTSD, it doesn't actually help. And over time, can unintentionally make it worse, because the more we avoid unpacking or processing something that's a trauma with PTSD, the more it festers. I liken it to like a wound. If you cut your arm and you just put your sleeve over it because it looks bad and it's painful and you don't want to face it, it doesn't necessarily go away. And when it starts to fester, it can get worse and it can grow and it becomes more dangerous and more painful, the less it's treated and allowed to heal. The same things can happen with our emotional and our psychological wounds. And they are wounds, just like any kind of other physical wound. And so it's important to be treated and to not just cover it up. So this is another aspect that's really carefully worked on in therapy, to give people the resources to slowly unpack and process these memories so it can regulate our reaction in our brain, so we don't have to have those same extreme triggers, or we have tools and resources to know how to respond when they happen, so we can actually start to heal. So next slide, please. The next category is arousal and reactivity symptoms. So in this category, you would need two. So really what you're seeing here are a lot of anxiety symptoms, or a lot of those reactions that come when we get triggered or when we're in that fight or flight mode. They're very common with any type of anxiety, but in this case, they can start to cause impairment when you're having them at random moments in the day, or when you're needing to function, or when you're trying to relax or sleep. So you'll see being on edge, just easily startled. We call this hypervigilance. It's literally on the edge of your seat. You're tense, you're on guard. You're just like ready for something really bad to happen. So when you're in a stressful moment, this could mean the difference of life or death. Hearing something, being able to react quickly, being on guard, right? We don't always want to be able to turn this off, but when it's getting triggered in our lives and we can't sleep, when we're on edge, when we're lashing out, the irritability is a big piece of this. You know, little things that could annoy anyone can suddenly be a trigger where you're having an angry outburst. Or you're having a hard time concentrating on things like work or school and not able to rest, to calm down, to feel safe, right? Because instead of being in California in 2022, safe, you're back there in the trauma and the experience. So your body's deregulated and it's hypersensitive and overreacting, which can cause a lot of impairment for people. So next slide, please. The fourth and last category is cognition and mood symptoms. So here you're really having a lot of symptoms that also co-occur with depression. And it's important to know that PTSD and depression are often co-occurring. I mean, it makes sense you're going through all of these distressing traumas and triggers and impairments that you would feel down, that you might feel depressed. And another piece of this that's also worked in therapy is beyond just having the actual memory of the event and thinking about it and all the upsetting feelings and grief associated with it. Sometimes there can be thoughts that pop in our head that aren't helpful, that aren't accurate. Sometimes they're very distorted and they can complicate your trauma and your grief. And they can create a lot of shame and blame and, you know, survivor's guilt. I mean, a lot of times people will have thoughts that pop in like, oh, if only I hadn't done this, if only I'd known sooner. Why did I survive and they didn't? Why did I come out and they didn't? And so sometimes these thoughts that are popping in there are unhelpful or distorted, and they can really lower people's moods and create depression, which has its own impairments. And so when it's woven in together with the trauma event and the anxiety and the amygdala triggers, it can really create a lot of pain and impairment for people. And, you know, what we call functional impairment, which is a big piece of any kind of clinical diagnosis and treatment. So next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, it's more than just a label. It's more than just something written in a book or a series of symptoms. I mean, yes, it is that, but it actually has impact on people's lives, negative consequences. And that's an important piece of this, because normally a lot of people won't reach out for help until they actually start having impairment in their life. And I really want to reiterate this piece. This isn't about a label. This is about getting treatment and help. And unfortunately in our society, but specifically in the military and veteran culture, for some individuals, there can be a stigma around mental health, about having feelings other than anger, about having pain, about needing help. And this needs to be overcome in our community because it's wounding, it's keeping the veteran wounded. Just like you wouldn't want someone to have a wound on their leg and to feel bad about receiving treatment or to feel weak for receiving treatment. The same is for the emotional wound, the trauma. It's the same kind of wound. You can't see it as easily as a cut, but it's just as deep, and it can be more insidious because you don't always see it. And the stigma, to be afraid to ask for help, to feel that mental health means you're crazy or weak. You know, veterans are strong, they're independent. They don't want to be the weak link. You know, there can be a macho element to this, but it is a part of the issue of getting people help and saving their lives. So we want to overcome that stigma, and we want to view it as an act of self-care and courage to reach out for help and to help others. So I really wanted to emphasize that on this slide. So this is by no means an all-inclusive list of the type of impairment or negative consequences for people suffering with PTSD. There are many more, but these are very common. And some of these we've already gone over. They're symptoms that cause impairment in our lives, that edginess, that angry outbursts, not being able to sleep, not being able to function and focus, feeling down on yourself, believing that things can't get better, which is an unhelpful, distorted thought. And it can lead to things like alcohol and substance abuse. I mean, that's another maladaptive coping mechanism, often used to self-medicate, to feel better, to numb, to get relief. And we know alcohol is a very big part of our culture, and it's a huge part of veteran and military culture. But when this is used to medicate, to numb, it doesn't in fact help that wound. It makes it worse, and it can cause other issues and other symptoms associated with addiction, and it can deregulate even more. So it unfortunately also co-occurs with mental health issues, particularly when untreated. So it's important to be aware that this is not something that's helpful. And when you reach out for treatment, or if you're receiving treatment, don't hide this piece. This is important for your clinician and your doctor to know, because they can both be treated. It's much more successful. And then, of course, issues that come a lot with employment, relationships, money, legal issues, health issues. You know, if you can't concentrate, if you're getting triggered and you're lashing out, this could be an issue getting and keeping a job, which then causes other stresses, financial stresses. When we isolate, when we feel bad, when we shut people out, when we get irritable with them and angry and experience rage, it causes issues in our interpersonal life, our relationships. And this is a big one, because we need each other. You know, relationships and that functional impairment is a big issue, and it's often one of the things that pushes us for treatment, but it's a big piece of the healing, because we've learned that connecting, supporting each other, not having to face it alone, is very healing and important part of that process. Of course, reckless behavior, you know, you're not thinking clearly, you know, you're kind of on edge, you're reactive. It's harder to have that executive function to think through consequence, which can come to a host of issues. And last but not least, we have suicidal thoughts and attempts. I mean, we're in Suicide Prevention Month. I think we all know this is a major issue in the veteran community. The population experiences much higher level of suicides across the board. And we know this is unacceptable. And part of this is people not receiving the treatment they need. This is a part of overcoming that stigma of talking about suicidal thoughts, getting help, you know, talking about mental health, receiving help, not having stigma, supporting each other. This is how we start to lower these numbers and save lives. Next slide, please. So here we're finally to the place of hope. So we know what PTSD is. We've talked about these impairments, but there's hope. And this is the healing part, because there are a lot of evidence-based practices that are successfully and scientifically treating PTSD, and they're available to you. They're available to the entire veteran community. Many of these are at the VA, other programs that work with veterans, that work with PTSD. They're happening right now, and they have science and research behind them. This is not an all-inclusive list. There are many different therapies that can help with PTSD and do. I've put these down because these are kind of the gold standard right now in the community, in the veteran community. And a lot of these focus initially on cognition. So you might hear cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. A lot of them have these elements that understand that our thoughts that quite automatically pop in our head, impact our feelings, impact our mood, impact our anxiety and our triggers, which then of course impact what we do, how we behave, how we react. And we call this the cognitive triangle: thoughts, feelings, behaviors. They all connect, and they're all important part of the healing and any therapy. But a lot of the cognitive processing, prolonged exposure therapy, you know, they're really slowly and with a lot of support and skills able to unpack and process the trauma and the experience in a safe environment, so it doesn't have to fester. It can be cleaned out in a way that isn't overwhelming for the client, and it has a lot of success. EMDR is big. I wish I could give you a lot more information on this because there's more and more research about it. It's being offered. It's really unique in that it's a part of reprocessing that cognition and those feelings, while also doing certain eye movements, which is shown to rewire the traumatized parts of the brain. And it's having a lot of success. Dialectical behavioral therapy wasn't specifically created for PTSD, but it gets used a lot with people with trauma who are very reactive emotionally, and they can have all sorts of behavioral issues. So with this therapy, you're learning a lot of techniques, grounding techniques, and mentally cognition techniques to help people be less reactive and more in control of their reactions, and handling and regulating their emotions and grounding themselves so they can react in a way that's more effective for them. And then of course, medication combined with talk therapy. Medication has been shown to help a lot of people. When you combine it with talk therapy or some of these other procedures, it can be more effective or be more effective in a faster pace, but it's not required. And I say that because I think there are a lot of veterans I've come across, they don't want prescription medications. There's a lot of talk in our community in the world about prescription pill addictions and overdoses and all sorts of stuff that understandably make people cautious about taking prescriptions, particularly with anything that's associated with mood or mental health. But I want you to be open to at least exploring and asking questions with your doctor if this is brought up, because a lot of the, say, for example, antidepressant medications that help with the depressed mood and aspects of PTSD, it's not habit forming. People do not overdose on them. They do not party with them. It's not a part of the prescription medication crisis in our country, but it's good to ask and not assume, particularly if you're really going through a lot of severe impairment. But you can do these type of psychotherapies without medication. So don't let that get in your way. So next slide, please. And so this is a very short list of some go-to coping skills that have been shown to be effective, helping individuals dealing with PTSD or really just living through life and stressors of life. So if you're already in a therapy program, you've probably learned some of these. Some of the others you might try. If you're waiting to get into therapy or until you get into therapy, they can give you some relief or some tools for your tool belt starting today. Because the last couple of slides, I'm going to have specific links that can get you started on that journey of exploring it. So mindfulness, I mean, look, right now, this is a catchphrase in the mental health world and culture. People are like, what is mindfulness? It sounds kind of woo-woo, California. But really what mindfulness is being able to be in the here and the now in your body, to be aware of what's happening in your body, to be in tuned, to bring yourself back into the moment. So you're not back in that exposure trauma event, the re-experiencing. You're not going ahead to some catastrophic possibility. It's getting ready to happen again. But you bring yourself back to California in 2022 and are able to do techniques and skills to ground yourself, to calm yourself, to calm down that arousal, to calm down those chemicals, and to be able to feel better and more in control of yourself and reacting and feeling certain symptoms and impairment that aren't helpful for you. And I put yoga because this is being used more and more with the veteran population. And once again, there can be a stigma that, oh, yoga is not for me, this is some new age stuff. But there is a lot of scientific evidence to show that yoga helps with relaxation. It helps with PTSD. It helps ground you in your body. You can make it as spiritual as you want, or it can be breathing and muscle relaxation exercises. It's great for health. It's great for mental health. And so being open to it could really give you an avenue. And it's everywhere right now. It's in every gym. It's really accessible online. There are a lot of videos, so be open to it. It could be a game changer for you. Deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and meditation and grounding. A lot of these are into that mindful category, that relaxation techniques category, and they can be hugely helpful. And a lot of them are incredibly simple or they can be made more elaborate if you want that. But they're easy, they're free, they can go with you anywhere. You don't need a prescription, and they can help. So being open to them. Deep breathing is just that. A lot of times in general, particularly when we're stressed, we do shallow chest breathing. But when we really want to relax, when we really want to tune into our body and calm down, doing the deep breathing, the diaphragm belly breathing can relax us down. And so that's a really base foundation coping skill. Progressive muscle relaxation. Once again, a lot of times we can just be tense. Our jaw can be tense. We're tense. We don't even know it. So in order to tune into our body where we're holding tension and know how to relax it, we can actually do exercises where we intentionally, progressively tense muscle areas and then relax and go down through the body, incorporate certain stretching. And it's been really shown, particularly along with breathing, to be really helpful. Meditation, once again, people are like, what is this? I mean, I can't sit still and just get everything out of my head. It just doesn't seem for me. Be open to it. You know, it could be as simple as just closing your eyes and breathing and listening to music that you find calming. It could be closing your eyes and imagining something beautiful and just relaxing. I mean, you can do guided ones where people talk you through it. You could do it on your own. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. So doing exploration to find what works for you is going to be key. Grounding techniques are used a lot with that dialectical behavioral therapy, which once again, tries to bring us back to the here and now. So using our five senses often, you know, our smell, our touch, our sight, to come back here and now, rather than be back in that event or in that stressor or in that arousal state, calming down. And then of course, you know, we have the go-to exercise, hiking, hobbies, creativity, things that move your body, things that connect you with people, things that recharge your battery or relax you. You know, I know for a lot of veterans, exercise is big, athleticism is big. And if this is something that you can utilize to feel better, other people maybe exercising during an arousal state wouldn't be helpful. They want to be more calming. You have to do a little trial and error. Creativity can be big. I mean, you know, I've worked with a lot of veterans who are incredibly creative. This is an important outlet: writing, painting, woodworking, doing things with your hands, just charging your battery, finding things that can be a good positive skill when you need it. And above all else, self-compassion. This is so huge. You know, being able to give yourself empathy and treat yourself with as much compassion that you would to someone you love or a buddy. You know, we can be so harsh on ourselves and it can really complicate things, but reaching out to others for support. I know I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to reiterate it. Isolating means sometimes we need alone space. It's okay. But if we isolate too much and we're stuck in that spiral of triggers and negative self-talk, and it just brings us down and it puts us in a hole. You know, the more we can talk to people and get support and give support, it's healing. So next slide, please. So over the next couple of slides, I actually went and just did a little of the legwork and included some links that you can start with today. This is just a starting point. I mean, I'm not going to say these are the definitive or even the best for you, but they're a good introduction and they give you somewhere to start. But there are many of these links, and you can go on Google or any search engine and see tons of resources. Sometimes there's almost too many. I disproportionately focused on videos, so you'll see a lot on YouTube because it shows you how to do it and it walks you through it. But everybody might want to learn differently. So there's a ton of resources out there, and this is just a starting point. Next slide. And you'll see the last couple were meditation and grounding techniques. And the grounding techniques, the second link isn't a video. It's actually a list of a lot of different skills you can use. And I just thought that might be helpful, as the YouTube video is just one example of one. Last slide. So lastly, this is my contact information. Please feel free to call me, email me. Happy to send resources to you, encouragement, any way that I can help or direct you to other programs in Outside the Wire. I mean, US Vets and Outside the Wire. Of course, I put the US Vets website because you can find out more information, because there's a lot more than therapy. We have, you know, a women's program that is wonderful, and also a career program, and just a lot of different programs that if you look on, you'll be able to find more information. And then once again, I'm going to direct you to the 988 number. I know that this was already mentioned. We're going to bring it up a lot. It's simple. The veteran community can push 1 after they dial, and you'll get someone specifically to work with the veteran. But you can just dial 988, and it's 24/7. It's confidential. It's free. It's there for you. It's there for you if it's happening to you, to someone you care about, you need help. It works. So put the word out. So with that, thank you for your attention. And I'm sending out such healing vibes to anybody that's suffering with PTSD. And if you haven't received help, please do. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. That was, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all the resources. Thank you for shedding light on something that affects so many of us. It was so great that we now have different resources that we can use and kind of plug and play and see what works best for them and their families. So thank you. All right. With that, we're going to move on to our next presenter, Crystal. Crystal is a mental health clinician and a dog service dog trainer. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name's Crystal. I'm a service dog trainer for Victory's Service Dog Ranch, which was formerly Silver Paw Ranch. I've been a dog trainer for the past 15 years, and I volunteered my time to be the trainer for Victory's Service Dog Ranch for the Stanislaus and San Joaquin County branch for the past 6 years. I'm also a mental health clinician in my last semester of grad school. I hope to become a therapist someday who works with the veteran population and specializes in trauma-related treatment modalities. Today, I'm going to go over some information with you about the program I train for, the benefits of a service dog, some of the laws surrounding service dogs, as well as provide you with information on the benefits the VA can assist you with in the process of attaining and maintaining a service dog if you have a mobility, hearing, or vision impairment. First, let me kind of go over how the Victory Service Dog Ranch program works. So for this program, a veteran may bring their own dog. However, that dog would have to be evaluated for safety and certain characteristics to see if it's a good candidate for becoming a service dog. Also, we can provide service dogs for the veteran. These are pulled from shelters. Sometimes breeders will also donate the dogs. And once the handler dog team, the veteran and their dog, is signed up, we work together as a group to pass the Canine Good Citizen test. So this tests how well-behaved your dog is around people, other dogs, and other dogs, and also requires you to know basic commands and for your dog to present in a calm, safe manner. For this section of the program, this can take up to 6 months, and we meet at a public park every single Saturday. It's a good environment for people to kind of joke around, get out and socialize, and also work towards a common goal. So after the dog has passed their Canine Good Citizen test, they receive their service dog and training vest. And at that time, we move on to public access training. So this is where we might go out in public and go up escalators, elevators, go into crowded areas, go to places around other dogs, especially dogs that might be reactive, barking, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that our service dogs are well behaved around all situations and environments. And so during this time, we're working towards passing the steps of the urban public access test. And this also takes about 6 months in the program. So after they have passed the urban public access test, the veterans and their dog receive their official service dog, which is individualized and unique for each veteran, as the veterans might present their symptoms differently. And I'll go into this a little bit more later, so we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so what can a PTSD service dog do? So PTSD service dog can reduce or intervene when the veteran is experiencing symptoms such as hypervigilance, anxiety, angry outburst, avoidance, and has difficulty managing crowded spaces or being able to be in social environments. The dogs are taught to recognize the cues associated with PTSD symptoms. These might be elevated heart rate, perspiration, and they can be trained to block the space, meaning standing horizontal in front of or behind the veteran when they're in a crowded area, say they're in a line, to help them to feel safer. They can also be taught to jump on or redirect the handler's attention once they start feeling those cues that tend to escalate and get worse. So the dog's job is to intervene before it gets to that time. So teaching the veteran during the task portion of training how to train their dog is not therapy per se, but I might argue that it is therapeutic, because during this portion of the test, the veterans have to be able to identify what those cues are, how they present physically and emotionally before they feel like they are irritable or about to have an outburst. And when they are able to do that, then they have to reenact it. And we talk about it in a comfortable environment. Remember, we've been together at this point for at least a year as a group, and teach the dogs how to respond to those cues before anger, panic, avoidance, anything like that occurs. So what this looks like during the task training portion is having the handler kind of describe their tells to help their dogs recognize it. So this might be feeling tense, pacing back and forth, fidgeting with your fingers. Just it's unique to each person and how they present. Then the dog's taught to respond in a way that either distracts or calms the handler or both. The group dynamic involved in the class meeting weekly at the park is also a key aspect that works towards the healing process. As Julie had mentioned previously, social support is one of the top predictors of positive treatment outcomes in many cases. And adjusting to civilian life after separation from the military can be overwhelming. And because of this, many veterans avoid socializing in public places as they no longer feel safe. A service dog, although they're definitely not trained as a protection dog and not allowed to act like that, can alert the veteran to something coming up behind them, so that that part of their brain can kind of ease because they have a companion with them in public places. I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. So in this study measures the symptoms of PTSD and quality of life for participants who received a service dog and participated in an 8-week training program, an 8-week pilot study. As you can see, from check-in time 1 to check-in time 3, their PTSD symptoms decreased and their well-being, as measured by the World Health Organization well-being index, increased. That means that they reported a higher quality of life and that their PTSD symptoms reduced from where they were at the start. If you look at this study closely, you might notice that there are only 4 participants in this study, and it's a published study. So my thesis that I'm doing for my grad school program is on the effects service dogs have on the symptoms of PTSD in veterans. And through researching for this thesis, there is very little evidence and very little research investigating the benefits service dogs have on the symptoms of PTSD in veterans, which is why it's so important to continue with research. I think, as was previously mentioned, evidence-based treatments like EMDR and prolonged exposure therapy, what that means is that that treatment has been proven over and over again to make a significant difference in symptom reduction and helping the person. So there hasn't been a ton of research into the benefits of service dogs, although it's pretty obvious to those of us who train service dogs for veterans, and we see the difference a dog can make in someone's life who maybe didn't go out in public before, or just didn't have a good quality of life as they would rate it. The service dogs do make a difference, but there needs to be further research in order to prove that. So I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. So, like I said, though I've witnessed the effects firsthand of the different a service dog can make, I want to share some more evidence of past research. So in this first study conducted by CalTAP and his colleagues, the group who received they had a group who received a service dog and a group who were put on a wait list for a service dog. And the group who received a service dog reported a clinically significant reduction in their depression scores from baseline to 3 months later, and again at a follow-up checkup 6 months later, which kind of highlights the lasting effects of improvement that a service dog can have on symptom reduction. Moving on to the next study by Coleman and his colleagues. This was a pretty interesting study that showed the people who took the study pictures of a disabled individual in a wheelchair with and without a service dog. After they had seen this, the results produced significant evidence that participants favored the disabled individual with the service dog as opposed to the disabled individual alone. And this kind of highlights a possible societal preference and acceptance for a disabled person with a service dog. It's also worth noting that psychiatric medications for mental health disorders such as PTSD are often associated with negative stigma, whereas a service dog may be less stigmatizing in general and help as a supplementary treatment to medications and talk therapy. However, there just needs to be more research on the subject because there's not a whole lot out there. So now we can move on to the next slide. Okay. So the VA currently does not provide service dogs to veterans, but they do help with expenses for veterans who need a mobility service dog, who have vision or hearing impairments. They do not currently provide cover expenses for a PTSD or psychiatric service dog. So service dogs who are attained through VA accredited service dogs programs listed below are trained to recognize the unique stressors or triggers that things that trigger a veteran to respond in a way. The service dog is meant to disrupt the escalation of these symptoms and improve the quality of life of the veteran. Some of the tasks that they might do is to support the handler in a public or crowded situation, provide a barrier like I had talked about previously. Blocking the handler in front or behind in a crowded area can increase the individual's feeling of safety. Additional tasks might also include nightmare interruption, turning on lights, and retrieving items taught to support the veterans' daily lives. So we also teach for our task training deep pressure therapy, and this is done when, a veteran can find a, nice quiet place to lay down. The dog will either lay on the veteran's back or on their knees, and just sometimes that deep pressure and comfort can give the veteran some relief. We also train the dogs if the veterans have medications that they're taking in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. We train the dogs to be able to go to that place where the medication is at those certain times to help remind the veteran. We hide a treat or a toy there, so the dog's very excited to show the veteran where their medication is. So some of the service dog programs that are approved and accredited through the VA include the California Service Dog Academy. All of these links are going to be provided in the chat, by the way. So this is an online academy that connects you with training modules taught by service dog trainers with 20 years experience. This online training program can take anywhere from 10 hours to 10 weeks, depending on your dog's current level of obedience. The Canine Companions organization is another service dog program approved by the VA. This is a nonprofit program which provides fully trained service dogs at no cost to the veterans. So veterans, their website on here that you can check out with the link is really easy to navigate. And if you look under the Veterans Initiative tab for service dogs, there's a lot of useful information there. This program places service dogs with veterans across the country but they have several locations in Southern California and in the Bay Area near San Francisco. I think there's like 6 locations in California. The program manager is Jim Dugan. He served active duty as an Army canine handler for 8 years. And since then, he's worked in law enforcement and the service dog industry. He's kind of your point person if you're interested in this program. And his phone number is listed on the website. So like I said, these links will be listed in the chat, but I will also have my information up on the next slide. So if in the future you kind of might need help navigating the system or understanding how to go about getting a service dog, feel free to contact me via email or text or phone call. So the next, some alternative service dogs programs that are not accredited by the VA include Victory Service Dog Ranch that I train for. We have locations in Northern California, Southern California, Texas, West Virginia, and Arkansas. And then also Canines with a Cause, they kind of run their program along the same lines as Victory Service Dog Ranch, where you're training the veteran to train their own dog, which I think has its own benefits in itself. Like I said, they have to learn how to identify and recognize their own symptoms in order to do the task training part. And it also has that socialization aspect and also a purpose. You know, if someone feels like they're avoiding, you know, human contact for good reason, probably, right? This gives someone an excuse to go out every Saturday and work on something that gives them purpose that they're doing as a group with like-minded people. It's a very fun environment when you're meeting at a park with people. Everyone's joking around, giving each other a hard time. The people from different branches of the service, I'm sure you're familiar with that, but it's a fun environment. So Canines with a Cause, they run their program similar to Victory Service Dog Ranch. They train the trainer. Their website's also pretty easy to navigate. They're a nonprofit organization and they pull dogs from shelters, and they also pull dogs from prison programs where dogs will get pulled from a shelter, go into a prison program. They'll live with the prisoners for 12 weeks and they will pass those Canine Good Citizen Test and Urban Public Access Test. And then those dogs will get placed in the program to be trained to be a service dog or to be trained to go to the veterans to work through the program. I also trained for a program at the Sierra Conservatory Prison in Sonora, where I do the same training with the prisoners there. So like I said, my contact information will be listed, and this will be open up for Q&A at the end if I miss some points, and I'll go ahead and give it to you, Jennifer, or Jen, sorry.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for all that information. Wow, it's so incredible. All the different type of therapies and definitely really cool the things that animals can do to assist with PTSD. So thank you so much for going through all of that information. I'm going to just follow up with one more slide for service animals. And this is for the, I just want to talk about the VA Pause Act pilot program. VA had started a research study to see if people having a service dog or emotional support dog helps people with PTSD do more activities and have better quality of life. The study is expected to take several years to complete. The National Center for PTSD is not involved in the study, but VA will provide results when they become available. So VA does not provide service dogs for physical or mental conditions, including PTSD. VA does provide veterans with service dogs that are deemed medically necessary. So right here, though, we have the veterans organization or the VA hospitals that are participating in the program right now. The pilot program will be offered in Alaska, North Carolina, and Palo Alto. So these are the contacts if you want to get in to participate in this pilot program that was signed into law August 25th of 2021. All right. With that, we're going to go to the Q&A section. Michael's been taking down some of those Q&A questions, and we are going to filter them through to the subject matter experts.
Yeah, so Yeah, so I'm just going to start with the first question here. And that is, could the VA help assist with any of the bills in a service dog that recently passed? I want to say that question was already answered, but if maybe Crystal or Julie want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll elaborate on it. So yeah, currently the VA only provides assistance for those service dogs that are attained through accredited programs, and the service dog has to be for a mobility issue, a hearing impairment, or a vision impairment, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is, will there be an update on the PAWS Act pertaining to PTSD and service dog veterinary care provided by the VA?
Say that one more time. Can you say that one more time?
And just once again, the question is, will there be an update on the PAWS Act pertaining to PTSD and service dog veterinarian care provided by the VA?
So they will do updates as they come available. So you can contact that that email for the Palo Alto office to see if they have anything there. But the VA should be, like they said in that news release, that they will be presenting updates as they come.
Okay, so this question here is wondering if there's any resources available to non-veterans that suffer from PTSD and high ACE score.
I can jump in with this one. I don't have any specific information about that, unfortunately, but I do want to speak to it because I think it's important. There can be generational trauma, and we know that when you have a parent who's dealing with PTSD, that is going to impact the child. So I do think it's important to get that support. I know that there is often resources for veterans' family. This specific situation, unfortunately, I can't answer right now, but perhaps someone else can chime in. But I do want to encourage you to get that support if you have any access to care, even through your own insurance provider, to get that treatment. I'm not sure if anybody else has information about this specific situation, but if you wanted to reach out for me, I can do what I can to look into it, but I can't answer the specifics. Sorry.
Yeah, I would just jump in here to say that Julie's absolutely correct. This is a veteran-specific presentation, and we all work with veterans specifically. It's not that we were ignoring any particular population, but there are plenty. You have to almost kind of do your own research on that with some Google searches. Contact any of your county mental health facilities and see if they may be able to help guide you in the right direction in that. Unfortunately, we just, because we're veteran-specific, don't have anything we can guide you to right now.
I would like to chime in also and just say that something that I would recommend possibly to do is to reach out to those organizations that we listed and ask them if they have any other programs for those that are not veterans, but maybe family members or somebody that's not even, see if there's any other programs there. They may not have a program, but they might know of programs that do have this type of program.
Okay, so the next question here is, there are so many animals that are in shelters. Can these dogs be trained and given to vets that are looking for service dogs?
You bet. So I also do I'm like the busiest person that ever lived. I think I also do assessments for the Stanislaus and Manteca animal shelters for dogs, and those dogs can get pulled and put into programs like this. Silver or Victory Service Dog Ranch also pulls from shelters, and the prison program that I work for, they pull 12 dogs from shelters every 12 weeks to go through that program. And some of the programs that those dogs will become service dogs pull from programs like that. So you bet a shelter dog can become a service dog. Certainly they have to be bold, they have to be of a certain age, they have to be okay with other dogs, so they will have to be evaluated for safety. So I wouldn't recommend someone just go to a shelter and and pick out a service dog without the assistance of someone who's experienced and who can give that dog a professional evaluation. But like I said, my contact information is in there. So if you have any more questions about that or something that you'd like to do in the future, just give me a call and I'll kind of describe that in further detail and set something up.
Okay, thank you very much. There was somebody out there in the audience, her name was Ruth, that just wanted to put out some information for a program that she was a part of for Tony La Russa Animal Rescue Foundation. I put that information in the chat if anybody's interested in that. So as of right now, that looks like that's about it for questions. So if anybody has any other questions that they would like to give out this time, we're gonna start to wind down here, and we're gonna give you guys a couple more slides here of just some upcoming webinars and surveys and things like that, just to kind of close down here.
Let me just, I have to chime in. I know we're running a little long here today, but I just want to say, first of all, Julie, thank you so much for that comprehensive presentation. As somebody that does suffer with PTSD, man, you just nailed it on everything you were saying. I'm smiling because you identified so many of the things that not only myself, but my family has to deal with. What a great presentation. And then on the other side, Crystal, we've met on the phone, but haven't had a chance to meet, but I have a service dog from Canine Companions, Blair. She's right here next to me. And for those of you that are interested in service dogs, please, I encourage you to pursue it. They are life changers, and in some instances, they're lifesavers. So thank you both for those great presentations.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Crystal and Julie, for being here with us and all the information that you guys are providing. We have up here, we're going to just do a few more slides and we're going to close up. So this slide again is our survey link. Please scan it. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what other type of content you want. We fully intend on implementing these improvements. We want to make these webinars as beneficial as possible to veterans, service members, their families and friends, and service providers. So please fill that out. Let us know how we're doing. And then we also want to put up again our contact information for Calvet with our social media. Please add us. Go to that YouTube channel. We have so much content on there on so many different subjects. So go to the YouTube channel and check out those other ones. And this, again, this webinar is going to be up on the YouTube channel, so you can share it with all your friends and family or those that you think that might be this might benefit. Now, again, I also have on the bottom here that 988 number. We want it to be as infamous and as easy to use as 911. So please put that in your brain somewhere, store that somewhere. And if you, somebody you love, or somebody you come across that needs help, please use that number and press 1. All right, let's go back to the contact slide one more time as we say thank you to our presenters. Again, thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Michael, for all being with us. And thank you to all of you guys that have chimed in, have been watching, been attending. Thank you so much for being here, all that you do and all that you've done to serve the United States military. Thank you and have a great day.